Well, friends, welcome to the Color of Money podcast. You are in for a special treat. I think I say that every time. Don't I say that? I say that every time, but every time is a special treat. I am Julia Lachey, and I am joined by my co-host, Daniel Dixon, Emmerich Peace. You know him as Unc. And we are missing Bowman Key today, but that's okay, because we're actually going to take this conversation back to the basics, like back to the very foundational basic of the Color of Money podcast. Now, on this podcast, you all know, we say that we are here to help people earn more, learn more, and build wealth. Well, I believe, and I think my co-hosts also agree with me, that the number one way that people build wealth in the United States is through the acquisition of real property. Said differently, buying a house, homeownership. Homeownership is the foundation of building wealth. I believe that so much so that I wrote a whole book about it, the color of real estate, building and unlocking the secrets to generational wealth. But in it, I say it's really not a secret at all. It's not a secret. It's something that people say all of the time. Wealth building starts with actually buying a home and getting into home ownership. You know how I know? Because there's a statistic out there that says that the net worth of a homeowner is $300,000, while the net worth of a renter is just $8,000. That is 40 times the amount of wealth simply because someone made the decision to get into home ownership and purchase real property, i.e. real estate, i.e. a house. The challenge, though, that we have is so many people still don't. If we're talking about the Black community, we have a home ownership rate of 44%, which means a lot of people still don't own a home. And something interesting that Daniel brought up before we even started this episode, even as real estate agents often don't even own a home. So today we want to talk about that. How do you get into the very basic fundamental conversation of wealth building, which is to buy property? And some people have challenges, and that's why we have our expert Daniel Dixon on here today, because Daniel is going to share with us how do we get over those challenges. And before I shut up, I want to say one last thing. The number one barrier for people who do want to get into homeownership, they want to buy a house. They might even have the income to pay a mortgage. They might even have the credit to, but they don't have the capital. The number one reason people actually don't get into homeownership is because they don't have the down payment. And so, Daniel, Emmerich, what do we do about this epidemic, I guess we could call it, of non or lack of homeownership?
We're at a unique time now because it's so expensive to purchase homes. So it's so, the cost of homeownership has gone up. But there's some statistic out there. It's like 62% of renters think that you need 20% down to buy your first home. Yeah. And it's such a fallacy. There's so many down payment assistance programs that we offer. I would say half our pipeline every month is doing some sort of down payment assistance program, that if you have the income and you have the credit, we can find the down payment that can still help you get into a home with little to no money out of pocket and create some stability and some protections around your housing expense.
Good decisions begin with good advice. And a lot of times you have people who are not making the best decisions because they're not getting the best advice. And unfortunately, there are many of us who are real estate professionals. Not only are we not giving the best advice, we're not accepting the best advice.
Where would someone get good advice from? If I'm just listening to this podcast and I say, well, yeah, I want to buy a home, but somebody told me blank, who should I be talking to get the correct information or the right advice about homeownership?
I would go to a housing counseling agency first.
And why? Why do you say that rather than a realtor?
Because a housing counseling agency is a neutral party, number one. Number two, their sole purpose of existing is to counsel people on how to purchase a house and how to help them find resources to purchase a house.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a lot of good agents have some of those resources as well. I think even starting with the mortgage lender and saying what you can afford. And we tell everybody in our world, like we take every application from everybody that we come across. And even if you have a 500 credit score, we're still going to get you on a credit plan, because whether you're buying a home in 1 month or whether you're buying a home in 2 years from now, we want to help people achieve homeownership. And that starts with getting your credit in alignment.
Well, so taking it back even one step further, and you talked about people getting bad advice and all the things. Some people just don't understand why they should buy a home or what the benefit would be. I gave a statistic, but for a lot of people, that's just a number. It doesn't mean anything. And a lot of people don't even know why they want to build wealth. Some people, many people, not some people, many people are literally just trying to survive. They're just trying to pay the next bill and they're not thinking about home ownership. I remember I had a friend that said, all I want to do is work my job, go to church on Sunday and go to brunch after. That's it. They didn't want anything more complex out of life than that. What is a reason why someone should even care about wanting to build wealth or to actually get into home ownership? What is the big deal?
Well, I think we had this conversation earlier. You have to begin with the end in mind. And one of the things that I've always said is that you have to prepare to get older. When you buy a property at a younger age, that means the probability of you paying that home off when you get into your senior years is a lot more probable.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you get to 60 and you have a property that's paid off or you get older, then if you have to rely on Social Security or some other type of retirement to live and sustain you, then there's one expense that you don't have to deal with, and that's the mortgage. And so with that being said, if you remove the most expensive part of your living, which is a mortgage, because your property is paid off, then that means you're only paying property taxes, insurance, utilities, and food. And so when you begin with the end in mind, you want to make sure that in your golden years and your senior years, you have the ability to have income that's going to sustain your life. Even if you haven't planned that well, you have a better opportunity of lowering your living expenses as a senior.
I want to read a passage out of my book, and yes, I'm plugging my book. If you can't see it, yes, I am. But the benefit of it says the economic advantage of buying a home. The economic advantage of home ownership versus renting are substantial when considering, like you said, long-term wealth building. Every mortgage payment builds equity rather than paying a landlord. Marcus, a client of mine, used to joke that his landlord gave him an anniversary gift each year, an increased rent notice. Once he purchased his first home, he gained control over his largest monthly expense. His mortgage payment remained essentially the same while his income grew, creating financial breathing room that expanded yearly. Fixed-rate mortgages provide stability and predictability. Unlike rising rents, homeowners can benefit from tax advantages, including deductions for mortgage interest and property taxes, which can significantly lower their taxable income. When you sell a primary residence, owners can exclude up to $250 in capital gains, $500 if you're married, if they lived there for at least 2 years. It goes on and on about the benefits of homeownership. But for the average American, and even realtors, Daniel, that know this, why aren't we all running to your mortgage lender, your realtor, your homeownership counseling service and doing it today?
Well, I think for a lot of real estate agents, we're 1099 employees, which means we are self-employed, which means that we write off a lot of our income. And when we go to qualify for something, we may make $70,000 in a year, but then when we go try to qualify something, we wrote off $60,000 of that revenue. And so it's really
it's a double-edged sword, right?
It is a double-edged sword, 100%. And there's a lot this time of year specifically. There's a lot of strategy that goes into a lot of clients that we work with and understanding, what do I need to claim in order to buy what I want to buy this year? Because unfortunately, there's so many. The goal of being self-employed is taking your taxable income to zero. Like that is the goal. But when you want to go try to finance something or do something, you can't do that unless we're using a bank statement loan, larger down payments, things like that. So there's other non-conventional ways to get into homeownership, even if you do write off all of your income. But the strategy is really in play, getting your credit in alignment. And I think it's not being, I don't know if curious is the right word. Let's
just sit here for a minute because this happened to me. I went to refinance the house that I'm currently in, that I live in, that I pay every month for on the first of the month, never been late. And we had a challenge because you were like, I didn't make enough money. The point was, I didn't make enough money to pay for what I already have, right? And the point was because as a business owner, you write everything off. And there are good ways and bad ways to do this. Help walk us, because many people listening are real estate professionals. Help us understand when we're doing that, what should we be doing and what should we not be doing? Because you taught me a lot in that process of things that obviously I'm trying to get the lowest taxable income, but then also the bank's looking at it and saying, you can't afford a house. And it's like, I live here. What do you mean I can't afford that? So how do we do that? Help us.
What I try to tell a lot of people is like, claim more income when you want to buy a house. Once you're in the house, do what you want to do. Go back to zero if you need to, for the most part, because what you make and what you pay taxes on are two completely different numbers. Now, there's something special. There's a magic pill for this, and it's called depreciation. And so when you own rental properties, or you own other investments, even your cars that you purchase, you're able to depreciate them. And so depreciation is like the magic bullet that when we're going through your self-employment taxes, let's just use easy numbers. You made $100,000 in a year, and then let's just say that you bought a $100,000 car, and your accountant depreciates that entire car for the first year of your taxes. That'll bring your taxable income all the way down to where you may not even have a tax bill. But then when I get ready to go qualify you for your mortgage, I add that depreciation back into your income. So when you own rental properties, it happens that way as well. And it's a way, this is how Trump didn't pay any taxes for so long, because he had all these buildings that he continued to depreciate that come off of your normal W-2 wage or your self-employment income. That is the goal, ideally, is having depreciation. If you have expenses in your business, unfortunately, if we make $100,000 and we have $80,000 in expenses that you take, meals and entertainment, car mileage, whatever else, systems, anything else that you have for your business, we're only showing $20,000 on paper. So the strategy has to go in to understand what is the target number we need to pay taxes on. And yeah, maybe 1 year or 2 years, you're going to be paying a tax bill. But the idea is so you can actually get into homeownership and create some stability for yourself.
How long do you have to show that, though? Because sometimes if you're an entrepreneur, like many of our listeners are, how long do you have to have filed taxes for? By the way, let's start there. File taxes. Many people, so many people call us and they're like, hey, I'm a whatever entrepreneurial business they have, and I want to buy a house. Okay, your tax statement. Oh, no, I haven't done that. They haven't even filed taxes in 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
So,
or more.
One, let's start there. File your taxes. But now I lost track of what I was going to say. What was I saying? What were you saying?
How many years we need to show that income? So if we're doing any government loan, a FHA loan or a VA loan, we're averaging your income over a 24-month period. So we'll need 2 years of tax returns. There are cases if we're doing a conventional loan where we can get away with just 1 year of tax returns. And so when I was buying houses on the early side, I did it the wrong way originally. I'm writing off everything so I don't have to pay taxes. And then when we're starting to look at purchasing houses, then I learned through the lender I was partnered with at the time that if we get this specific approval, we can use only 12 months of tax returns, which changed everything, because then it was like, we're not averaging my income over the $30,000 I claimed in year 1. We're only using year 2 and whatever number I need to qualify for that house in year 2. So this is the importance of getting with the money guy or the money girl to understand what you qualify for and how do we structure this. Some of the down payment assistance programs that we offer are conventional programs that could use only 1 year of tax returns. Some of them, we have a conventional program that's only 3% down, which is less than FHA down payment. And then a lot of the down payment assistance programs that we offer nationally, and then also some of the local programs in each state, are mostly FHA driven type of loan programs.
So like you were saying, you don't need 20%. Down payment's an issue. And as Emrick was saying, go to your housing counselor. They have a lot of resources. Find a mortgage lender that does down payment assistance if that's the situation or issue that you're having with that, is getting the down payment. But what about credit? Let's pivot to that. Obviously, that's the second. I shouldn't say obviously, people might not know that, but the second barrier or challenge that people have isn't that maybe they do have a lot of money, but they don't have the best credit. We've done many episodes where we've talked about credit, how to use credit, how to pay off credit, debt, etc. But what does your credit situation need to look like in order to get into a home?
Well, what's interesting is a lot of people think that credit is the most important thing, and the most important thing is income. Credit we can manipulate, we can play with, we can do credit repair. If we don't have enough income and our debt to income ratios are too high, there's nothing we can do there. So your score matters, but your income matters more. From a score perspective, some of the down payment assistance programs we have go all the way down to 580 credit score. Typically, you need about a 620 or higher to qualify. And then for VA loans, there's no minimum credit score requirement. It's all based on your residual income for the most part. So your credit profile matters. You can have collection accounts. You don't want to have disputes. We don't want to have a ton of late payments, but the average buyer that we work with has a score of probably like 640 or 660. And frankly, those are the buyers that we really enjoy working with because there's a lot of gratitude when we get into their first home. It's not your 780 credit score person with 20% debt to income ratio that is a slam dunk. We specialize in making the difficult accessible and helping people. When people get turned down, we often make those loans work because of some creative ways of getting around, or not even getting around, but some creative ways of structuring the loan or paying off debt or doing things to help people qualify that didn't think they could qualify. Mm-hmm. And disclaimer, your Credit Karma score is not your FICO score.
I learned that from you.
I kid
like,
you
what?
not. Every single person thinks, and sometimes Credit Karma is all over the place. Sometimes it's really low and their score is really high. Sometimes Credit Karma is really high, but their FICO score is really low. It's a completely different scoring model. So what we often do is we do soft pulls for our clients when we take a loan application so we can see their credit without having to actually have a credit inquiry hit their account. So it's an easy way for us to see what's going on, what did debt to income ratios look like, what can they afford, what credit repair, things like that look like. And because we're licensed in just about every state in the country, we can do this across the board with anyone and everyone, really.
Well, you just said something there that a couple things. One, you said people think it's credit, but it's really income. And then you talked about debt to income and affordability. Affordability is an issue. Like the housing prices are going up. And people's incomes aren't necessarily going up at the pace that the housing prices are going up. So there is an especially entrepreneurs, especially if you're in real estate the last 3 years, these have not been the best 3 years.
Yeah.
Like legit, when he's like, I don't make enough money for the house, it's like, that might be true. I probably made a lot more money when I bought this house than I make now. Like what is it? Is there anything that we can do about this discrepancy or this disparity between the income people are making and the prices of the house? Are there any creative ways that we can still buy a house if our income isn't super high?
No.
Well, no.
No.
Well, we gotta, and this is just a different thing. We gotta say no in a traditional fashion.
Not right now. How about that?
Tell me more.
Well, they could buy properties subject to the existing mortgage. It gets a little creative. If someone is in a position where they have to sell or they want to sell and they have an existing mortgage, you can purchase a house subject to the mortgage that's already on the home. Now the question could become, what are they asking? To allow you to purchase subject to their existing home, and
So are you just talking seller financing? Is that what you're saying?
It's not seller financing.
It's different.
No, it's basically, think about it like a cash for keys scenario.
Yes.
Meaning it's usually people that are behind on their mortgage that don't have any equity. And you're basically saying, I'll give you, we've done it before where it's like, I'll give you, $5,000 and you quit claim the title into my name. And we just continue to make the payments for that property as an investment property and so on. It's a niche. It's called subject to financing, really.
Tell us more, because this sounds really dangerous to me.
Well, it's dangerous for the person who's allowing you to buy subject to. However, it solves both issues. They can't make the mortgage payment, and you're willing to make the mortgage payment. So it's a match. The only challenge is that if you're buying that house as a principal residence, you got to like that house. So you may not be buying the house that's your dream house that you want to purchase. It's just allowing you to purchase a home. Now, on the other end, in that space of buying subject to, maybe in 3 to 5 years, you can refinance it into your name because the equity is there. There are different avenues that can happen. However, this is non-conventional. Let me make this clear. This is non-conventional.
Yeah. But I think that's the conversation we need to be having is how can we do some non-conventional things for people who are struggling to get into homeownership in a conventional way because of whatever the barrier might be.
So another hack is if we buy a duplex or a triplex or a quadplex or a fourplex, we can use the rental income from the other units as qualifying income to qualify for that house. So if your income is low, then we want to go buy a multiple unit property. So if we're looking at a 3-unit property and two of the units are currently rented, we can use that rental income from both of those units and use 75% of that income to qualify. So even though you're not qualifying for the entire purchase, you're only qualifying really for a third of the purchase because the other 2 units are paying monthly rent that we can use to qualify. That's the house hack that I think everybody, if you're buying your first home, really should do. The best way to set yourself up in your future, because the goal is having multiple doors, not necessarily multiple. You think about it like a roof and how many doors we can have under one roof, rather than having a bunch of different roofs.
Right.
So I think that's definitely a hack, and
I think that's a good one for realtors too, real estate professionals that are in this every day. You're seeing transactions every day. You're running across deals every day. That might be a great place to start is by looking for a multi-family property that you can own or occupy.
One of the big challenges I think for a lot of people where they can't purchase is their dreams and wishes at this particular time. Their pocketbook or their wallet can accommodate their dreams and wishes. And they're not willing to crawl before they walk. And what Daniel's talking about, he's talking about a house hack where you have to crawl before you walk. You have to be willing to take 1 unit and live in 1 unit, rent the other 2 out or the other 3 or 4, however many units, and use that as a building block to get you to where you want to go. And I just think in this day and time, there's so many people that want to start at the top and they don't understand that there's steps to get to the top.
I think that's a good place to kind of put a pin in as well, Emmerich, because the challenge is, and I believe a great deal of that challenge is social media. We had the problem before social media existed, where people were seeing all the fancy and you're seeing all this Instagrammable stuff and you have an idea of what you want, not just your house to be, but your lifestyle to be, because they're selling lifestyles. They're walking through the house I saw these videos, they're walking through the house with the BBLs and they, and they go into the closet. Have y'all seen these videos, these real estate videos they're doing now? Like it's a lot going on.
With the BBLs, really?
Yes. You haven't seen this? It's a fad. It's a thing. So they go through the house with this, the camera's behind this big old booty and they're going through y'all have not seen this. It's a thing. And they're selling the lifestyle of all of it. Right. And people want to be able to afford or pretend they can afford a house that's way outside of your price range, a body that's probably way outside of your price range, and I can't believe y'all haven't seen this. It's like a whole thing right now.
I think we out of touch, Daniel. We out of touch. We're out of touch,
well,
bro.
The other thing is we can still use down payment assistance for a multi-unit property like this as well.
Yeah.
If you're a licensed agent, like what I encourage all of my agents to do, if we're going to get paid, commissions are negotiable and all the other things, right? Success fees, whatever you want to call it. But if you're able to get paid a percentage of the purchase and your minimum down payment is 3.5% of the purchase, we're really only looking at a small amount that you need to bring to closing to be able to acquire that piece of real estate. And so a lot of the people that we're working with, if we can't get that beautiful home that they want, we're explaining to them, you've got to get into something. Because if we just get into
Daniel went straight back to the numbers when I was talking about the fictional life that people are looking to acquire. My whole point in saying that was there's this social media thing of acquiring bigger and better and more, and really, I don't know what it takes as a society, as a culture, for us to bring it back to the basics of you just have to get into a house. And it might not be that one with that video or any videos. In fact, it might be on the foreclosure list. It might be on the sheriff's sale list. It might be on the whatever. But, getting back to the basics of bigger isn't always better. And just the basic small simplicities of life that you can actually afford.
What we often talk to buyers about is like, where are you today? You're in an apartment. Even if we made a lateral move and you have the same square footage, the same thing, but you own a condo and your payment may be a little bit higher than where you're at right now, but you actually own something, then 3 to 4 years from now, we can leverage that and trade up and then go get the thing that we want. We've got to get out the mindset of we want the perfect home or the dream home today. We've got to set that expectation on what we want that to look like. And if we go buy the home at $500,000 today, we're limiting our ability to buy any investment properties in the future because our debt to income ratio is out of whack. So it's better to do it small first anyway, because that'll allow you to continue to trade up and then be in the forever home when you get to that point and when you're stable enough to be there.
I think what you're saying, Daniel, is we just have to have a delayed gratification conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the next challenge, the next barrier, I should say, is that some people are waiting for the perfect market to buy. They're like, no, I wouldn't buy in this market or in this environment. Everything's falling apart. We're at war. We don't know what the government's going to do tomorrow. And people will wait for a perfect condition. First of all, in your experience, and I'll ask Unc first because you have more experience than us. In your experience, has there ever been a perfect market? What does that look like, and how long should we wait for one?
There's never a bad time to buy a good piece of real estate.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, you just have to align your thoughts with where you are and where you want to go, and more importantly, what you believe is the perfect time. Is the perfect time for what? You buy the home, you marry the house, date the rate. So if the rate's not what you want, the rate's not permanent.
Yeah, you know what? I saw people making comments on social media about that one too, because we were saying that a lot 3 years ago, right? When the rates went up to 7, we were saying, "Oh yeah, date the rate, marry the house." And then some people are saying, "Yeah, I'm ready for a divorce now. This is not working. This is not working out because the rates still haven't gone down substantially from what we were thinking. We were thinking, oh, it's going to go back down, and then I'll get a better rate. But how long do you stay married, to a high rate? I think we sold people a dream on that.
But here's the deal: even if you date the rate, you didn't say how long you have to date the rate, but the reality is that you're in a better position than you were had you been single unattached.
Is that true though?
Yeah. Well, for most people, yes.
Okay.
Because you're not. If you're single unattached, you're not accumulating any equity, right? Mm-hmm. You're not building a solid.
You're not investing. You're not investing.
It's not a solid mental foundation. It's proven that renters don't have the same mental stability as homeowners. It's a different perspective of life.
Well, the thing about homeownership like that too versus renting is that at minimum we have a forced savings account. At minimum, let's say there's zero appreciation and so on. We still have money going to pay down the principal balance every single month. And doing that over an extended period of time will pay off the mortgage entirely. So if we rented for the last 3 years versus if we purchased a home with the higher rate 3 years ago, the extra money we'd be paying is likely going to principal right now anyway that is built into the current house. And so we have a program that's buy now, refi later as well, where we do no cost refinances for our clients that bought with us with the high rates. And that way, as the market shifts, we're able to take care of you and get you into that lower rate. And I mean, this is the highest your payment's ever going to be. You almost want to look at it that way.
I feel like this is an appropriate time to talk about my favorite page from the Millionaire Real Estate Investor book, where it talks about real estate being the most able investment. And it says it's the most accessible. Anyone can buy it. It's the most appreciable. It increases value over time. It's the most leverageable. You can buy on margin and borrow against it. Mm-hmm. It's the most rentable. You can get cash flow from it. It's the most improvable. You can get sweat equity from it. It's the most deductible, depreciable, deferrable. It gives the great tax benefits. It's the most stable, to Emrich's point. It's slow to rise and slow to fall, but also provides actual stability for your family. And the last one says it's the most livable, because there are no other investments that I know of that you can come home to and lay on the couch and actually live in. It creates shelter in more than one way. And so I love to use that slide when I teach about home ownership, that it's the most able investment that you could possibly get yourself into, because you can't do those things with stocks and bonds.
One of the things that we didn't touch on, though, is the protections. I tell a lot of my folks, like, your mortgage is due on the 1st, but it's late by the 15th. So if you pay your mortgage every single month on the 10th, there's no late fees, there's no reporting your credit, no eviction notices, like literally nothing. And so when you rent, your rent's due by the 1st, late by the 3rd, and you're going to start getting those notices on your doors by the 4th every single month with a ridiculous amount of late fees. So you have the protections from a cash flow or a payment perspective. And then from an eviction perspective versus a foreclosure perspective, you have a lot longer to be in your house if things get really hard, medical illnesses, job loss, any of these other crazy things. You have way more protections as a homeowner than you do as a renter as well. So just from a protection play, it's a lot better for most people to own a home than rent anyway, on top of all the wealth building things that we talked about.
I want to kind of streamline the pathway to homeownership. Hopefully by now you understand why we believe that homeownership is important, also especially for real estate professionals. And then the pathway to do it is the programming. You said, Dan, you talked a lot about programming. There's state and local programs. There's down payment assistance. We have a first gen program here in Minnesota for first generation home buyers. There's a lot of different community based programs like that. And you can get that information from, like Emmerich said, your local housing organization, where that's their whole job, is to counsel you on how you can get into homeownership and if it's good for you. So there's a lot of different pathways to get into it. And if you are a real estate professional or an entrepreneur, file your taxes, right? But be strategic in how you're filing your taxes. Daniel has explicitly told us it's not about trying to reduce it to zero taxable income, because you won't be able to actually get a property with that. And if your income is low, consider buying a multi-family property, whereas you can use the income from the renters as well, right? Is that correct, Daniel?
Correct.
Yeah. So there's a lot of creative ways we can do that. What we didn't talk about is seller financing. When you all were talking about the cash to keys idea, we didn't actually talk explicitly about seller financing, which is also an option. Remember, we had Mel on the podcast before, and she went into great detail about buying investments and buying property strictly through seller financing, finding people who want to sell a property and are willing to act as the bank. And in those cases, they may be a little more flexible in your credit score or your income or whatever that might be, by seeking out and finding people who own an asset that they no longer want to pay for. If I didn't have a mortgage on my duplex that I have listed right now, I definitely would seller finance it. I just don't want to I don't want to pay for it. I don't want to worry about nothing. I just want to sell it to somebody. So there's a lot of people out there that do have no mortgages on their properties. I can't remember the number. Can you all remember that number of people who have no mortgage on their property?
It's like 60% or something
It's over
like that.
60%. Yes, a lot. It's a whole lot.
A lot of over 60% of people don't have a mortgage on their property. They own it free and clear. And they may be willing to finance that, and they act as the bank and the seller provide the financing. That's an option too. So if you haven't heard Mel's episode, she has a whole TED Talk on it, worth listening to learn about that being an option to get into homeownership as well.
I mean, you have rent to own options that can work, lease purchases that could work. There's a bunch of other creative financing ideas that can still work to get into homeownership. Payments may be a little bit higher than you want. Then the best and lowest interest rates for the most part that you can get are going to be through traditional mortgage routes, FHA, conventional VA type of situations. But there's a bunch of other ways to get into a home, to get into your first home, and you don't need that 20% down number. You don't need 10% down. There's a bunch of different ways to get into a house. Plan your taxes accordingly for our entrepreneurs out there, and let's get more real estate agents owning real estate. That would be phenomenal.
Seriously. Yeah. So back to my book. Right? So back to The Color of Real Estate, which you can find on thecolorofrealestate.com, or you can get it on Amazon. But in conclusion, I want to read the conclusion page as we wrap up. The conclusion is, 1, evaluate your current housing situation. As both of you were saying, you're renting now, you're paying someone's mortgage already. You're paying a mortgage already. So evaluate where you are with that. If you're renting, calculate all the payments that you've made to somebody over the past 5 years. What could that have done for you personally, right? The second thing is to check your credit report. Like Daniel said, we've been checking Credit Karma, thinking that's our rate, and maybe your rate is much higher than that. Maybe your rate is much different than that, and it may not need to be as high as you think it is. Daniel's saying their average client is 640, 660 that they're getting mortgages on. So check your credit, see where you're at, use the correct methods to do that. And then research down payment assistance if you need down payment. That's number 3 on my conclusion list. The local places that Emmerich talked about, and connecting with a knowledgeable, emphasis on knowledgeable real estate professional to help navigate and guide this for you. It may be your first time, but it's our 100th time. This is what we do. So connect with somebody who knows how to do that. Even if you are a realtor and you want to buy a property, it's not a bad idea to connect with another real estate agent. Oftentimes, when I was teaching for the housing counseling agencies, I would have real estate agents come to those classes so that they could learn what they teach you way more in those first-time homebuyer classes than we ever teach our clients one-on-one.
Yeah.
So I'd have real estate professionals come so that they know all the programs Daniel's talking about, all of those things. So connect with a knowledgeable real estate agent. And number 5, create a home buying timeline with a specific financial milestone. When are you going to buy this thing? What are your unique circumstances? And also, it doesn't have to be the house. It's not your final house. You just want to get into home ownership.
It's always a good time to buy a good piece of real estate.
A lot of real estate professionals don't understand about down payment assistance. A lot of lenders don't have access to the different programs, or they just don't use them. And so getting with someone that does a lot of business, that understands the different options for everybody. Down payment assistance is not for everybody, but it's a way to help for the people that don't have access to down payments or 401ks that we can liquidate to use as a down payment.
I love that. Thank you very much, guys. And thank you all for tuning in and listening to another episode of the Color of Money podcast. We will catch you next week. Y'all take care.
This podcast is for general informational purposes only. The views, thoughts, and opinions of the guest represent those of the guest and not Keller Williams Realty LLC and its affiliates, and should not be construed as financial, economic, legal, tax, or other advice. This podcast is provided without any warranty or guarantee of its accuracy, completeness, timeliness, or results from using the information.